The morning fog still kissed the skyscrapers of New York when David Miller, a real estate magnate in his early 30s, exuded an aura of uncompromising success. His surname was synonymous with gleaming high-rises and multiplying fortunes, an empire he had not only inherited but also expanded with an almost predatory ferocity. In the eyes of the world, David had everything: power, wealth, an enviable network of contacts, and a lineage tracing back to the city's founders. Yet, in his meticulously constructed world, there was a gap of almost 5 years, a chapter he had sealed with the coldness of a terminated contract and the distance of an ocean. This gap, or rather this person, was Jennifer Miller, a promising young woman who, in his not-too-distant past, had been the cleaner of his penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side, a woman with a vibrant spirit and dreams larger than the Manhattan horizon. Jennifer, then in her mid-20s, had entered his life like a whisper of reality amidst David's overwhelming luxury. Her smile, ever present despite long work hours and late-night studies to become a fashion designer, had the power to pierce the armor of indifference David wore so well. They had shared fleeting but intense moments, secret encounters that for David were a welcome distraction from his rigidly planned life, and for Jennifer, a fragile promise of something deeper. However, when Jennifer revealed her unexpected pregnancy, David's empire crumbled down on her. The pressure from his family, especially from his mother, the relentless matriarch Patricia Johnson, was suffocating. Patricia, a woman in her late 50s, with eyes that seemed to freeze steel, couldn't allow a scandal to tarnish the Miller name. David, then 29, succumbed to the pressure, offering Jennifer a substantial sum of money in exchange for her silence and distance, a decision he rationalized as protection, but which was, in truth, an act of cowardice. Jennifer, her dignity wounded, refused the money, choosing scarcity over humiliation, and vanished from David's life, taking not only a broken heart, but also David's biggest secret. 5 years and 7 months had passed since that bitter farewell. David had plunged deeper into his work, building towers and fortunes, but the nights in his luxurious apartment felt emptier than ever. Jennifer's image, though buried under layers of business deals and new conquests, occasionally surfaced like a persistent shadow. On a rainy Tuesday morning, David's life, as predictable as a financial statement, was turned upside down by an unexpected sound: the shrill ring of his private phone, a number very few people possessed. On the other end, a child's voice laced with desperate urgency whispered, "Daddy, Mummy won't wake up, she's so cold." David's blood ran cold. "Who are you? Where is your mother?" he asked, his voice hoarse, trying to maintain composure. The child, a little girl, continued, "I'm Laura, we're in Sunnyside, near the old school." Sunnyside, a forgotten neighborhood in the outskirts of Queens, miles away from Manhattan's glamour. Adrenaline began to pump, and David, without hesitation, tossed his untouched coffee into the sink and sprinted to his car. With every block he left behind, Jennifer's image grew sharper in his mind, and a terrifying realization began to form. Laura was his daughter. Sunnyside was a stark contrast to David's world. Worn brick buildings, cracked sidewalks, children playing ball on patchy asphalt. The old school, with its rusty fire escapes, pointed the way. When he finally arrived at the given address, a small third-floor apartment in an aging building, the scene he found was heartbreaking. An ambulance was already there, lights flashing, and paramedics were carrying a stretcher. On the living room floor, hugging each other, were 2 small girls with light brown hair and large blue eyes, identical to David's. They were twins, Laura and Michelle. And in a panic, Laura's face was wet with tears, while Michelle, quieter, watched everything with a frightened gaze. A caring neighbor, Mrs. Sanchez, with graying hair and a floral apron, approached David, her voice filled with concern. "Jennifer, she's been so weak lately. Working too hard, not eating right. The girls tried to wake her up but couldn't." David felt a lump in his throat. Is Jennifer, so vibrant, so full of life, now so frail she could barely wake? He knelt, embracing the 2 girls who, in their innocence, still didn't fully grasp the gravity of the situation. The resemblance was undeniable, overwhelming. Their eyes, their small hands, even the lock of hair falling over Laura's forehead was a mirror of his own. At the public hospital in Queens, the wait was excruciating. The girls, scared and confused, clung to David, who held them with a strange mix of dread and paternal tenderness. The doctor finally appeared, with a tired expression. "Ms. Miller is stable but severely dehydrated and gravely anemic. She was burning out, Mr. Miller. She'll need time to recover and nutritional support." David nodded, guilt eating him from within. He had let this happen. He had created the conditions for this. When David was finally allowed into Jennifer's room, she was pale with cracked lips, but her eyes, though weak, held the same spark of determination he remembered. Seeing him, a mix of surprise and anger crossed her face. "What are you doing here, David?" she whispered, her voice faint but firm. I got the call from Laura. She called me," he replied, feeling like an intruder. Jennifer closed her eyes for a moment, a solitary tear tracing a path down her cheek. "You know, I always knew you were selfish, but I thought maybe, just maybe, you had enough decency to stay out of our lives after everything." Those words pierced David deeper than any business failure. "I didn't know about the girls, Jennifer. I swear. If I had known," he began, but she cut him off. "It doesn't matter. You left me when I needed you most, and I don't want your money. I don't want your help. I built my life, my daughters, and my dreams alone. My project Wings of Freedom is my life now. It's what I live for. Wings of Freedom," a name that resonated with Jennifer's own resilience. David felt small and insignificant, a mere spectator in her story of overcoming. He looked at his daughters, who now slept soundly in a nurse's arms, their small breaths the only melody in the room. He had lost 5 years of their lives, and the magnitude of that loss struck him with overwhelming force. Jennifer, despite her fragility, seemed stronger than ever, a phoenix reborn from the ashes of disappointment, with her 2 small wings of freedom by her side. He knew that somehow he would have to win back not only her trust, but also her love and that of his daughters. The road would be long and hard, but for the first time in years, David felt a purpose that went beyond accumulating fortunes. Jennifer's reply at the hospital echoed in David's mind like a persistent sound, a just accusation he couldn't deny. Wings of Freedom, the name of her project, a fashion design competition with substantial prizes, was a beacon of her resilience. David, feeling ashamed and disoriented, knew he couldn't simply vanish again. His daughters, Laura and Michelle, had planted a seed of love and responsibility in him that he never knew existed. He needed to make things right, not just for them, but for Jennifer, the woman he had treated so cruelly. In the following days, David tried to approach her. He paid Jennifer's hospital bills, bought clothes and toys for the girls, and tried bringing food and flowers. But Jennifer, though grateful for the small comforts for her daughters, maintained a cold barrier, a mix of hurt and pride that David couldn't breach. "David, please, I appreciate what you're doing for the girls, but don't mistake that for what I want for myself. I don't want pity, and I don't want you to think you can buy your way back into my life." Her words were like daggers, sharpened by past pain. David realized he needed a different approach, one that demonstrated genuine commitment, not just an attempt to appease guilt. He started visiting Jennifer's apartment in Sunnyside, offering to help with the girls. Initially, she was reluctant, but little Laura and Michelle quickly bonded with Daddy, whose stories and games were a balm to their lives filled with hardship. David read to them, took them to the local park, and, to his own surprise, found genuine joy in every laugh and hug. He began to see the world through Jennifer and the girls' eyes, the small daily victories, the beauty and simplicity, the strength of a united community. He also began to understand Jennifer's passion for Wings of Freedom, seeing her sketches scattered throughout the small apartment, her fabrics piled high, her mind buzzing with ideas. He realized Jennifer's talent was undeniable, and she deserved the chance to shine. However, the shadow of the Miller family loomed over them. David, now confronted with the reality of having daughters and a former partner in a working-class neighborhood, knew he couldn't hide the truth from his mother for long. Patricia Johnson, a woman who valued the family's image and legacy above all else, would be merciless. In a tense family meeting at her Fifth Avenue mansion, David revealed the existence of Laura and Michelle, and the fact that Jennifer was their mother. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Patricia, seated at the head of the dining table, had a face of stone. Her eyes, which could cast glances that would make executives tremble, fixed on David. "Son, "You know what this means for the Miller name, don't you?" she said, her voice icy and controlled. "A scandal, an irreparable stain on our legacy. You have to deal with this, and quickly, discreetly. I suggest you offer her a considerable sum for her and the children to disappear from our lives. No fuss, no trouble." David felt a chill down his spine. He had expected a strong reaction, but his mother's cruelty and lack of empathy shocked him. "Mother, they are my daughters, and Jennifer is their mother. I'm not just going to make them disappear. I abandoned them once, and I won't do it again." The argument was heated, with David defending Jennifer and the girls with a passion Patricia had never seen in him before. Patricia, seeing that David wouldn't yield, decided to act on her own. Her network of influence was vast, and her ability to manipulate situations was legendary. A few days later, Jennifer received an unexpected visit from the Child Protective Services. An anonymous complaint had been filed, alleging neglect and unhealthy living conditions for the twins. Jennifer, already exhausted and fragile, felt her world crumble. She knew it was Patricia's work. The inspectors, though sympathetic to Jennifer's situation, were categorical. If the conditions didn't improve, or if there were more complaints, the children could be removed. The threat of losing Laura and Michelle was the hardest blow Jennifer had ever received, more painful than David's abandonment. Desperate but determined, Jennifer decided to confront Patricia. She asked David to look after the girls and, with her head held high, took the subway to Manhattan, heading for the imposing Miller Enterprises building. Patricia's office, atop the skyscraper, was a sanctuary of power, with panoramic city views. Jennifer, in her simple dress and worn shoes, felt the difference between their worlds, but refused to be intimidated. "Ms. Johnson, I know you filed the complaint with Child Protective Services," Jennifer declared, her voice slightly trembling but firm. Patricia merely smiled, a thin, cutting smile. "My dear, do you really think an anonymous complaint could be traced back to me? How naive. But yes, I admit I am concerned about my family's reputation, and your presence doesn't help at all." The conversation turned into a battle of wills. Patricia tried to manipulate Jennifer, offering a generous trust fund for the girls, on the condition that Jennifer distance herself and relinquish any claim to David or the children. She used poisonous words, insinuating that Jennifer would never be good enough for the Miller family, that her humble origins would always be an embarrassment, but Jennifer refused to back down. "I won't give up my daughters, Ms. Johnson. They are my life. And David, he is their father. I know what he did, but I won't allow you to take away his right to be present. And as for my project, Wings of Freedom, it is my voice, my chance to show that I am more than you think. I will not be silenced or bought." Jennifer's strength, even in the face of the Miller matriarch, was stunning. David B., who had followed Jennifer, appeared at the door of Patricia's office in the middle of the argument, having worried about her. He witnessed the scene. Jennifer's pale face, his mother's scornful expression, and the courage radiating from Jennifer. He stood by her side. "Mother, stop. You won't intimidate Jennifer. She has my support, and I won't allow you to hurt her anymore. If you can't accept Jennifer and the girls, then you can't accept me either." Patricia, shocked by her son's defiance, looked from one to the other, realizing she had underestimated both Jennifer's strength and David's loyalty. The battle lines had been drawn, and the consequences would be monumental. Wow, the tension is mounting. The story of Jennifer and David is unfolding with so much emotion. If you're enjoying this journey of overcoming and family drama, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our inspiring stories. We want to know your opinion. If you were Jennifer, what would you say or do at this crucial moment of confrontation with Patricia Johnson? Leave your comment and share your reflection. The confrontation in Patricia Johnson's office marked an irreversible turning point. David's presence beside Jennifer was a public testimony of his loyalty, a direct blow to the matriarch's authority. David's words, charged with newfound resolve, shocked Patricia, who wasn't used to having her will challenged. She watched the two, a flicker of controlled fury in her eyes, before David and Jennifer withdrew, leaving behind a trail of defiance and unspoken promises. The next major event was the Miller Enterprises press conference, scheduled for the following day, where David was supposed to announce a multi-billion-dollar merger. However, Patricia had other plans. While David prepared for the announcement, Jennifer, in her small Sunnyside apartment, was focused on finalizing the last details of her project, Wings of Freedom. She had been selected for the final stage of the design competition, and the deadline was fast approaching. David had managed to secure a small sewing studio for her in a community center, and she spent every available hour sewing, designing, and weaving her dreams into every stitch. On the morning of the press conference, the luxury hotel ballroom was packed with journalists and photographers. David, in an impeccable suit and a serious expression, was about to take the stage when his mother, Patricia, made a dramatic entrance, accompanied by her publicist. She stepped up to the podium before David, microphone in hand, and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, before my son, David Miller, makes his announcement, there is a matter of utmost importance that needs addressing. A matter that affects not only our family's reputation, but also the moral integrity of the Millers." The murmur in the room intensified. David felt a chill, knowing what was coming. Patricia, with a voice full of feigned sorrow, began to twist the story, painting Jennifer as an opportunist attempting to exploit the family name, and David as a victim of manipulation. She presented fabricated documents and anonymous source testimonies corroborating her version of events, aiming to publicly humiliate and discredit Jennifer. The headlines were already forming in the journalists' minds. David, in shock, watched his mother dismantle Jennifer's life in public. He knew he had to act. Taking the microphone from his mother's hands, he spoke with a clear, firm voice that echoed throughout the room. "With all due respect, my mother is mistaken. Jennifer Miller is not an opportunist. She is an incredibly strong, talented woman, and the mother of my two beautiful daughters, Laura and Michelle, who are 5 years old. I abandoned her once, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. Jennifer is the woman I love, and I will not allow anyone, not even my mother, to defame her." The room erupted in a frenzy of flashes and questions. David, looking directly at the cameras, continued, "I am resigning my position at Miller Enterprises. I am renouncing my share of the inheritance. I refuse to be part of an empire built on dishonor and cruelty. I choose Jennifer. I choose my daughters. I choose to build a new legacy, a legacy of love, respect, and honesty." David's words struck Patricia like lightning. The empire she had worked so hard to protect was crumbling before her eyes, not because of Jennifer, but because of her own tyranny. The consequences of the press conference were immediate and devastating. The media exploded with the story, painting David as the hero who abandoned his fortune for love, and Jennifer as the heroine who overcame adversity. However, the exposure brought a wave of scrutiny and gossip. Sunnyside became a center of unwelcome attention. Laura and Michelle, though still young to fully grasp it, felt the weight of the change. Children at school whispered, and neighbors looked on with curiosity. Jennifer, exhausted by the pressure and judgment, realized that despite David's love, his world was too toxic for her daughter's happiness and innocence. On a rainy evening, with the girls asleep in their rooms, Jennifer confronted David. "David, I know you did this for us, and I am grateful, but I can't. This world, your world, it's not for the girls. They need peace, a normal life, away from the spotlight and judgment. I need you to understand that no matter how much I love you, we cannot be together right now, not like this. I need to protect my daughters from all of this." David's heart broke upon hearing those words. He had thrown everything away for her and the girls, yet she, in her wisdom and unconditional motherly love, was asking him to step away again. He tried to argue, to plead, but the determination in Jennifer's eyes was unwavering. With tears in his eyes, he agreed to give her and the girls the space they needed, promising that somehow he would find a way to win them back, in a way that was safe and peaceful. Despite the painful separation from David, Jennifer channeled all her pain and passion into her project, Wings of Freedom. Without the distraction of the media or family intrigue, she plunged into her work. On the night of the National Fashion Design Competition final, Jennifer took the stage, a beacon of elegance and resilience. Her collection, inspired by her journey of overcoming, her daughters and her pursuit of freedom, was a stunning mix of flowing fabrics, vibrant colors, and innovative designs. Each piece told a story of rebirth, female strength, and hope. The judges were captivated, and the audience, familiar with her story from the news, gave her a standing ovation. Jennifer Miller was announced as the grand winner of the Wings of Freedom competition, and her name was proclaimed as a new voice in fashion. Jennifer's triumph was not just a personal victory, but an inspiration to many. Meanwhile, David, true to his promise, had completely distanced himself from the Miller family business. He used his own resources to establish the Creative Renaissance Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting young fashion talent in underprivileged communities, offering mentorship, resources, and opportunities. The first major beneficiary of the foundation, not surprisingly, was Jennifer Miller, whose Wings of Freedom studio flourished with David's support. A year and a half passed. David and Jennifer had rebuilt their relationship, brick by brick, not based on fortune or scandal, but on mutual respect, unconditional support, and a love that had matured through trials. The girls, Laura and Michelle, grew up happy and secure, with a father and mother who loved them above all else. They married in an intimate ceremony in the community garden of Sunnyside, surrounded by friends and neighbors who had witnessed their journey. David, in a simple suit, and Jennifer, in a dress she designed herself, promised each other a life of complicity and shared dreams. The lesson was clear. True wealth wasn't in empires of cement and steel, but in the unbreakable bonds of family, the power of resilience, and the beauty of a new beginning. If you made it this far, the story of Jennifer and David must have touched you. It's an honor to have you with us, and we want to warmly welcome you to our community. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and transformative stories. And to feel even closer, we want to know where you're watching us from. Share in the comments which city you represent, and let us know if you liked the video. What did you learn from Jennifer and David's journey? Your opinion is very important to us,